All right, so we're with the Explorer interns. First of all, what is well, actually introduce yourselves first, and then let's talk about what an Explorer intern is.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Adriana, and as you mentioned, I'm an Explorer intern. So what we do is we do 4 weeks of PM work, and after that we do developer work.
Okay.
Hi guys, my name's Larissa. Just introduce myself. I'm a current rising junior at the University of Southern California.
Okay.
And yeah, so as she mentioned, Explore Interns, we do 4-week PM and 8-week dev. And specifically on this team, we were actually given separate projects to work on, which is different from a lot of the Explore Interns here at Microsoft.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Yogesh, and just like I said, I'm also an explorer, but I'm not going to go into what an explorer program is at Microsoft, but it's basically for freshmen and sophomore in their universities and who do not have a lot of computer experience as such. So it's mainly a program for them.
Okay, and so in college, I assume you're not studying computer science.
Actually, I think we all
are
computer science.
Yeah.
So then how could you not be competent with computers?
So in the sense, like in the first 2 years, you don't do a lot of computer science classes. You do more of a general class, and then, for example, I haven't done a lot of CS classes. I'm more into stuff like biomedical stuff. So and then so not a lot of CS experience, right? So I think it's a program for people like that.
That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, like, before entering college, I had 0 coding experience. And so actually, like, my first class was that intro to computer science class that I took my freshman year. So now that I'm a sophomore and I have a little more experience, I think it was time to, like, have an internship that I could learn from just being in the industry. But I think it's really nice that the Explore program kind of helps you learn just more about the industry and become more comfortable with software development overall.
Cool.
So it's awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And so what college are you going to?
I go to the University of Texas at Austin.
Interesting. Austin's a cool place. Right on. And so computer science, computer engineering? Computer science. So you've all taken algorithm classes?
No.
You haven't done that yet?
I have.
Okay.
That's mine on my to-do list.
Right on. Anyway, that's all boring stuff. You will learn that, and it's really interesting, and you actually have to learn that. So my question to you is, after spending time being a program manager in the modern sense and a dev, what's your takeaway of the difference between a program manager and a dev, and which do you prefer if you had to make a choice?
For me, I feel that the program manager role is a lot more broad in the sense that you really have to analyze the actual product and the customers and why they need it, why they use it, and what they need in the future for that product. And to me, that I found that really, really interesting, and I actually do prefer the PM role because of that. But for me, I do want to continue on as a developer for now because I really want to get that technical experience. So as Yogesh and Larissa mentioned, like we haven't really gotten a lot of technical experience. So to be able to have the technical experience and understand the technology better will, I think, help me in the future be a PM and understand both the product and customer needs.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah, I think, like, before coming in, I sort of knew what a PM did, but didn't necessarily know, like, what their day-to-day was like. I know that they dealt with the products and they dealt with the customers. But since coming here, I definitely think that the PM role, what we drive towards, at least for our internship, was to try to be, like, as customer obsessed as possible. So, like, conducting user interviews, doing, like, cost and timeline analysis, like just a bunch of stuff to help make sure our development went a lot more smoothly and that we were looking for the right things to implement. And I think similar to these guys here, like, I really enjoyed the PM role. I think in the future, one day I might want to try to transition into the PM role.
Cool.
But as Adriana mentioned, like, we still are very young in our technical experiences, so I think we want to maybe take on more development roles first, just to build that up, and then maybe switch on to different roles later.
Great.
So I think first of all, like coming into the Explorer program, I had no knowledge of what the program manager is, because I think outside Microsoft, I think the exposure to program managers, like people often mistake that to be project manager, and that's what I thought it would be. But then program manager is very much different, because there's also a lot of technical knowledge you need to know about what the product is, and you need, and then there's a lot of like feature development that I've realized that is a part of a program manager's work, which I wouldn't think was a project manager's work. So I think the first thing I would, like, this can be a suggestion, is that there needs to be, like, people need to know more about what exactly is a program manager. And so what I liked about being a program manager is that I got to do a lot of research and to basically understand what I'm going to do over the 3-month period. So that's what I liked. But what I didn't like was actually like talking to different people, trying to satisfy everyone there. So that is something which I don't think I can handle personally. So I don't think I'll be shifting onto that program manager role later on in the future. I just don't think I can like satisfy everyone. So that's something which I didn't like. So I'm going to be a developer. I'm hoping, like you guys said, I first want to take a lot of technical roles, and if later on, if I have some interest in program management, let's see.
Excellent. No, that's great. I mean, that seems to be exactly what a program manager is today. And what about developer, though? Like, what did you get a sense? So, first of all, you're on the Service Fabric team. I think people realize this since I'm doing this video and you're here. But you spent the summer on the Service Fabric team, which is a relatively gigantic code base with a lot of hard problems and a ton of customers. So you must have talked to a bunch of people inside the company who use Service Fabric. So let's shift a little bit to the topic of, what do you think of Service Fabric? Like, what did you learn? Like, what was your experience coming into distributed systems and a product as big as ours?
So before, I learned a little bit about distributed systems in my class, but I never really saw it as more than just like a theoretical thing. I think like, I kind of knew like what Kubernetes was a little bit, but I didn't really have too much experiences with it. And so coming to Service Fabric, I know like being put on the team the first day, I was like, oh, what is this? Like, I don't really know what anything is. And what was really great was our manager, Alana, she actually told us like the first week, we're not really going to give you any project details. We want you to just discover what Service Fabric is, just look at the documentation, try to follow the guides online, and really try to understand why a customer would want to use Service Fabric. And I think that was like a super awesome experience that we had. And now I know like, at least for me, like I'm still learning about Service Fabric like every day. Like there's just so much behind it, and I've like barely just scraped the surface. So it's been like super awesome just learning about Service Fabric and the different technologies behind it. So it's been great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything that was surprising to you?
Oh, okay. One thing was like I was really surprised was that Service Fabric, if you take the essence of Service Fabric, is such a simple concept, right? Like it's just like trying to make your thing very robust, and it's just like modularity when it comes to that. It's like to understand the essence of Service Fabric is very simple, but like after that, and just like how that simple concept is like used to manage such a huge integral thing in the modern day cloud stuff is something I was surprised. I'm like, it's like such a simple thing can make a huge impact. That's what I understood after I went through like what Service Fabric really meant. So I think that's something that we all were surprised by.
So what does Service Fabric really mean? You just set yourself up, man. So what's the essence of Service Fabric?
I think it's basically build a robust management system for the cloud, like in the sense like services in the cloud. And just like it's like a fabric, it just holds everything together, right? So if anything goes wrong, there are like nodes replays, and if anything, everything is managed well. It's all put together. I think in one word I would say it is to make whatever service you want robust. I think that's what I understood from Service Fabric.
Okay, right on. Well, that's definitely one of its core capabilities. And so let's jump into what you all actually worked on. I know I saw in all honesty, I already know the answer, but people out there don't. So talk to us about your project.
Yeah, so I was able to work on 2 small projects. So the first one was to actually try to integrate one of Service Fabric's applications, Service Fabric Explorer. which people use to analyze their clusters, visualize them in a simple way.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was trying to do with that was actually provide it into Azure Portal. So what Azure Portal is just a portal of a bunch of Azure services. So a lot of customers use that to use all the services, right?
Sure.
So yeah, one of my projects was to kind of put that application on there for portal customers to take advantage of. The second one I worked on was actually exposing one of the APIs that Service Fabric has called Chaos, and just having that available in the same application that I worked on before, just so people can be able to know that that API exists and know that Chaos can be used by customers today, and just to make it easier for customers to use, because sometimes using PowerShell commands and all those things can be like complex and difficult, and maybe people stray away from using those kinds of commands. So being able to expose it in the application was one of the things that I looked into.
That's awesome. Taking it and synthesizing it down to a button and a couple parameters.
Exactly.
At least people can experiment with it, right?
So what I worked on was also on the Service Fabric Explorer, and what I wanted to do was to create multi-cluster views within the Explorer. So right now, what users are experiencing is you can view one cluster at a time, and the SFX is super awesome because it provides so much information for you, and it's really easy to use, but it's not really scalable as Service Fabric is scalable. So like I talked to a bunch of teams like Azure SQL and also like the Intern team and the OneNote team, and they all use Service Fabric, like a lot of organizations at Microsoft do.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, it's not a really great solution right now to have to open up 10 clusters at a time. I want there to be a single way to view it. So basically what I did was I tried to have a single view where you can view multiple clusters at a time, and this will just make it easier to developers to interchange between their clusters and just make development a lot more easier for them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So I got to work on the project to just increase the exposure of REST APIs on the SFX. So I spoke to a lot of different people, both within and outside Microsoft, and got feedback on the different APIs used, and then finally I analyzed like different reports from the Service Fabric team, and I realized that the two APIs which needed exposure was image store and Chaos. So first, let me talk about Chaos, because I didn't get to implement. My podmate got to implement the Chaos part. But then what I found out was that Chaos needed a lot of exposure because people didn't even know that Chaos was out there. And it's in the end, it's going to make customers happy because they're going to build more robust applications. Mm-hmm. And also, so what I mainly focused on in the Chaos part was actually to get a scheduler working. But because that was something which they felt that it's very essential, but small steps, right? So I didn't, but due to other facts, I didn't get to expose Chaos API. So I moved on to image store, which was what I did throughout the summer in the development phase. Mm. So why is that image store important? Mm-hmm. I would say that it's because in a lot of these debugging issues, image store is mainly used because sometimes like a lot of apps are there on the image store, but then they are not exactly used, or a different version of that application is used, and you necessarily don't want the old versions to exist on the image store. So this was like, and nowadays what we use is just PowerShell commands, and these are very like opaque, and people have to enter a lot of commands basically. So people needed some kind of a UI which kind of like made this work easy for them, right? So what I did was basically make a file explorer for the image store on the SFX. So now people can just see what the content of the image store is, what's the size of the different files, what are the total number of files in the image store, and also see like what's the space occupied by the application packages and application types. So now they have this like kind of a more exposure into what's actually in the image store without having to write a lot of commands. So this will help reduce the customer support cost, which I think is very important, because I've seen people on call just like go running here and there trying to figure out what's wrong. So I think this is something that'll be very useful, and hopefully And also there's also this list on OneNote which has all the REST APIs and which shows them what's already implemented and what needs to be implemented and which you don't have to look into. And I think that this one way where people can track of what's happening with the exposure of REST APIs.
Great. Really impressive work. I mean, to go from not knowing anything about the product to experimenting being a program manager and then a dev, all in what? 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks? How long have you been here?
12.
12 weeks, sorry,
Yeah.
everything's a blur. 12 weeks is such a short amount of time. It's very impressive. And so what was it like outside of, sitting in our pods? Actually, Microsoft, like everybody else, everyone sits in little pods, we call them. We used to have our own offices, by the way. And so, but interns would typically be set together, and then all of the FTEs would be in their own offices. So this gave you more of a taste of how it really is today. And so you could easily walk around and ask people questions, or in the case of, you had mentioned during your talk, some dev could hear you talking and would come and help you.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your overall impressions of Service Fabric, the team, being Microsoft, now that we are in this new sort of Microsoft world. Lots of young people on this team, huh? Only a few gray hairs. So let's talk about that.
I mean, I think
Very vague question, but
yeah, no, working on Service Fabric was awesome. I know, like, coming in, none of us really had experiences with any of it, and our manager and all of our mentors and, like, really everyone on the team at any moment would just help us with whatever we needed, whether it was just talking about Service Fabric or pretending to be a customer who's using actually, they're not pretending, they're actual customers that are using our product. They had no problems helping us, explaining us the difficult concepts, and I think through that, like, just being able to talk to the engineers here, it helped my learning so much and kind of got us to where we are today, like just having a product that was successful and that's ready to be customer facing. I think it was totally awesome. Yeah.
So something which I would say I was the most benefited because of the Service Fabric team, because everyone in the Service Fabric team is super helpful. So I came in with zero experience on front-end development whatsoever. So I was struggling a lot with HTML, even though it's like a simple thing to do. But then there's like, when you just learn a thing for the first time, obviously you're going to experiment with the code and you get frustrated a lot easily. But then it's just like people just were continuously helping me with stuff. It's like I said in my talk, so what happened was, like, one day I was just suffering with columns in HTML, and then I would have figured it out eventually after maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. But then it's like, so I was just like, I heard someone, and then so this one full-time employee just like saw me being frustrated, and then he said, you know what, you should try out flex boxes. That's something that's happening now in the HTML thing, and then you should look into it. And then he did not stop there. He actually went ahead, and then he was in constant contact with me, and he said, oh, this is what you're doing, you know what, you should try the different properties of flex boxes. And not only that, a lot of people, they just don't even there were people who were just like clients who necessarily did not have any other duty. They were just supposed to be my clients, but they also knew that I was an intern, and they actually went beyond and explained to me how the whole program management side works, even though they were a full-time software developer. And so it was just like everywhere I went, people were very eager to teach, and they were also eager to learn. They wanted to know what I did and what was my background. So they were really understanding of all the problems we faced.
awesome.
Yeah, to kind of get from him. So like everyone here is so happy to help. Reaching out is so easy. I found it super shocking to be able to just ping someone or email them and say, hey, is it okay if we meet for a couple of minutes just to talk about chaos, just to talk about the portal, just to talk about Service Fabric in general, and all of them were just so happy to say, hey, yeah, anytime between here and here works. And everything was just so flexible for me to learn. And it was just amazing to be able to talk to full-time employees about what they do, and just to see them so passionate about what they talk about is just super encouraging, super inspiring, because that just makes me want to learn more. And it just shows how good of a team this is. And I was honestly so happy and excited to see that everyone is just so willing to help you learn, as they mentioned, and just so happy to help and so passionate about what they do. It's just great.
That's awesome. You know, one of the things we don't really talk about that often is the impact that working in a real company and then going back to college, right? So what are you going to take from this experience that might help you in the next couple of years in college? So for example, you learned how to do deep research and ask a lot of questions, right? There's no reason you can't take the PM model and bring it to college. So we should talk about that. You learn some real skills here that are independent of Service Fabric and Microsoft.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that coming here, you have to want to understand everything. You have to want to understand all the small details, and I think I'll definitely take that back in that I want to learn more and I want to really truly understand so that I will be able to actually apply it. Because in school you don't really apply things, but like working here, you really do have to apply it. So I think that's one of the biggest things. Another thing, organization. You have to talk to so many people here and have so many meetings and all these things, and organization is another thing that I think I will take back. I don't know, I can't think of anything else.
That's great.
I think especially during the PM phase, just realizing why you're doing something or trying to, I guess, having a meaning behind everything you do, kind of. I know that's sort of cheesy, but it's true. Especially when you're developing something, you have a limited amount of time and you have to decide, what's more important to me and what's more important for maybe the company that you're working for. And I think realizing that is really important. And I think what also kind of building off of what Adriana said, having a passion to learn and being willing to learn all the time is super important. And I think also from that, not being afraid to ask questions whenever you need it. Because I think I didn't really fully understand everything until I got to that final point where I asked all the questions I could to my mentors in order for them to understand complex things in the code, for example. Not being afraid to ask in order to kind of pursue your passion for learning.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
So there were two main things I would definitely take back. So the first thing that they mentioned was that I think program management is like taking life decisions. I actually thanked my program manager mentor for this. He said, because as a person, I would be super passionate about a lot of things at the same time. But then there has to come a time when you have to decide, this is more important than the others. And that's something which I learned as a program manager, and I will definitely take this back to my college life, because I think I have to make a lot more decisions in life, and that's definitely going to help. The second thing is that working in a big company and writing code, right? So once you learn a language, so one thing I failed to do this summer was I learned a language, I wrote some code, and I got it to work. But then I miss this essential step where I go back to that code and ask myself, how could I have done this better? How could I make it more reusable? How could I make it something that everyone else will use in the future, or something like that? So this is something which I missed out this summer, but I will definitely take this back to my college life and basically go, after I finish some work, go back to that work and ask how can I make it better before I give a final product. I think this is something everyone should do, and this sets you on a progressive track, and thumbs up for growth mindset.
Awesome. Great. And so the last question would be, are you guys you're gonna come back as an intern? You're
Yes.
going to apply?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you're going to apply as a program. So when you become a quote unquote intern without the explorer part,
Yes.
you'll be put on a real project
Yeah.
and focus
And
the
yes,
entire
solo.
summer.
Yes.
Solo, yeah.
Yes. And so there won't be any exploring what it's like to be a dev. You're going to be a dev.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there'll be a lot of exploring and learning and stuff. And of course, Microsoft makes it fun, right?
Yep.
You hang out with all the other interns,
Yeah, so much fun.
parties. Who was the concert this year?
Oh, Pitbull.
Pitbull. Wow, with the sunglasses.
Yeah,
from
everything.
What's up?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And fun.
Yeah,
Cool.
no.
Right on. So good luck in your next year
Thank
in
you.
your colleges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for the great work that you've done, because it actually is impactful. and check it out in N amount of time. Maybe you'll see the chaos button. Maybe you'll see the work you did, and you'll see the work you did. You know, maybe it'll all be there. So we're just going to take this and run with it.
Awesome.
So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Take care.
Likewise.